Good evening from Swansea, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight news, and reviews on a daily basis. And last night was a crazy night for professional wrestling. We firstly had NXT Vengeance Day, which was a hell of a pay-per-view, and Clark and Shard covered it on last night's episode of NXT Off the Air, in case you haven't seen that. But then after that, we had AEW Collision Grand Slam, and boy oh boy, was that an enjoyable show as well. There were undoubtedly negatives as well, and we'll get to those, but we are going to be talking about all of it today. Before we kick things off, we have a few comments out of the gates. Firstly, Fernando, shout out to you, saying Grand Slam was fire last night. Timeless Tony versus May was dramatic and fantastic, no doubt about it, but DCX Warlord thinks Harley was robbed. I mean, Mini Monet might actually be more over than the real Monet, and that is saying something. But now let me introduce today's panel. And for today's question, and I've just decided this now right out of nowhere, but Clark, I want you to do your best impression of an Australian accent to kick us off.
Oh, sharks, water. That came out half Boston at the end. Sharks in the water. I don't know. I love the land down under. Don't get me wrong. Give me a Vegemite sandwich, which is terrible, but I do love the song. Yeah, I wish I had a better accent there, but I am on show 4 today. Speaking of Grand Slams, about to hit my first career one.
Fair play. 4 shows in one day. That is very, very respectable. Make sure you guys check out Sunday Night Spotlight airing on later tonight on the Wrestling Republic YouTube channel, and a new show which we're going to be having airing in the next couple of weeks. Also joining us today, we had somebody who was very busy last night, the head of reviewing here at Wrestling Republic, Coby Galenzoski. Coby, give me your best Australian accent.
I mean, all I got is something like crikey. Or I mean, I don't know.
That was all
that's
right.
all I got. It wasn't
bad.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, apparently we can say hell earlier because Ben said it. So I mean, I'll be happy to use that later on in the show as well.
Yeah, I at least think we can use that word. Can we?
News to me.
Better than earlier.
It was news to me, Ben.
But also joining us today, we have the always controversial Ignacio. Ignacio, give me your best Australian accent.
Oi, oi, ahoy, bruv, or whatever Osprey says.
That was more like London.
I guess.
Pretty perfect.
I don't
London.
know. This. You got me on a Sunday talking about AEW, so yeah, I'm enthused for the show, but not enthused to talk about AEW. So let's get this over with, because you say it was a great show, and I say it was, what do the kids say nowadays? Mid at best.
Oh, wow. Hot takes out of the gates. Fair play, but let's just jump straight into the opening match. Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega teaming up, the dream team to take on Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. I mean, this match was exactly what you'd expect this match to be. Ridiculously fun, so innovative, so many crazy spots, but also very, very fast-paced, not necessarily following the tag team rules, but still, I loved it for what it was. Clark, what were your thoughts on it?
I thought this was electric. I thought it was as fun as you could ask for it to be. It's a really cool rivalry. It's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. You've got Fletcher, obviously, with the Australian connection involved in this match. And despite that, the crowd was behind Omega and Ospreay, and that's what counted in my eyes. That's what mattered when it came to this match. I think it's really, really important to note that the fans didn't just go hometown advantage for every Australian on this card. That was one of the biggest things that stood out to me, and I really, really actually appreciated that because of this one specifically. Now, the rest of the card, obviously, it was a little bit different. Pretty much every Australian was cheered really hard, but the crowd understood that Ospreay and Omega were the baby faces. They were the team, and I enjoyed the match. I hear you on the tag team rules. There was some funk in there, but outside of that, this was pretty clean top to bottom. And I didn't have any issues with it. Not any major ones. Maybe some minor ones, but for a Saturday night of wrestling, immediately following another card that I watched and covered, immediately following a show as the show opener for AEW, it locked me back in, and I was immediately back into the on-screen product, which I appreciate as a fan myself.
That is a very fair point indeed. And I also do like what you mentioned that they were not rooting for Kyle Fletcher. In fact, the person who they were rooting for the most was Will Ospreay. And this was fascinating to me, but I think it actually brings up a little bit of a bigger thing. And that is, of course, the huge rivalry between Australia and the UK, right?
Right.
I mean, in sports, it's one, and just in general, it's a huge, huge rivalry, right? But on this card, it almost seemed like the British talents, they were almost rooting for a little bit. And then I thought to myself, when AEW came to the UK, we were doing the same thing for some of the Australian talents. So maybe it's more of a thing of, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I don't know.
I think it's fair play too, though. I actually think it's kind of a cool phenomenon there, right? Like, it's sport is sport. It doesn't mean you hate each other. And
no.
Well, it's not that
historically, I think there is a bit of bad blood.
There's tons of history and bad blood, of course. But my point is, like, it is a cool thing to see the cheering on both sides and like the respect of talent. I do appreciate that too, Ben.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What about you, Coby? What did you think about this opening bout?
I mean, I think a lot of what we said is going to be quite similar. The crowd was electric for this. First off, that's what made this match. If this is a match with a weaker crowd or a not as hot crowd, it's a relatively weaker match. But this is what it needed to be. It needed to kick it off with a bang, and bang, Omega. It was great. It was enjoyable. I thought it was well done. You had your counters between Ospreay and Fletcher. You had your hard hitting strikes between Takeshita and Kenny Omega, and this match definitely was the vehicle to help us on the road to Revolution. Of course, setting up two matches. You got your Ospreay Fletcher cage match and Omega Takeshita 2 at the next event. That's enjoyable. That shows that this kind of did what it needed to do. I really like the finish as well. The Hidden Blade and One Winged Angel, that is a super tag finisher that nobody should ever kick out of. And I mean, it's not like we're going to have many Will Ospreay Kenny tag matches, but that's a super finisher that nobody should kick out of. And it was the rightful climax to this match.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I will say, if they ever have a match against the Young Bucks, right, they ever run this back against the Young Bucks, I could well see them kicking out of it. I do think.
Probably.
No, don't speak it into existence,
Sadly.
Ben. Why would you?
It's going to happen. Whenever
no.
Omega and the Young Bucks are in the same ring, all moves, all psychology goes out the window. It's kick out, kick out, kick out. And it's a lot of fun. But psychologically, Ignacio would hate it. But Ignacio, did you hate this opener?
I do hate. I hate this show. No, look,
Blunt out of the
it's just
case.
like yeah, it's just like any other AEW tag team match. Look, the first half of the match I thought was pretty good. I thought they stuck to the rules. The pace was a little bit slower, and then they picked it up. And then once they pick up the pace, it's like any Ospreay match or a Fletcher match. To me, they're one and the same. And it pick up the pace, and then it starts to get ridiculous. Like then they start breaking the rules, and then they start forgetting the tag, and then all the false finishes, and then they hit each other with, their finishes 12 times or whatever, and then one thing I can say good is what you guys mentioned before. At least they protect Kenny Omega's finish. I wish they would do that with more talent from either both companies. Kenny Omega was battling diverticulitis, correct?
Yeah, he was.
The past year he was out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was saying he's still Kenny Omega, but he's moving a bit slower, right? And you can't blame him. He is getting older and his body's, wearing down. Don Callis had the most heat out of everybody, in my opinion, and he's a manager. And a Bobby Heenan, he is not. It's just this today. To me, this was just it was like another Dynamite, or it was a little bit a step up, but I mean, nothing special. These guys bury the referee. They make they're a disgrace to tag team wrestling. I don't know why they had this match. I don't watch AEW all the time like I used to anymore, but I do have pick bits and pieces to pay attention to and go over and go back and watch. But for somebody who like me, and this is a criticism that's been said over and over again, I watched the show on Max this morning. I didn't watch it live, but was there a video package at the beginning to this
There was not,
follow up as far as what's going on the match? Well, there you go. Well, that's one thing I don't like about the show is that if I haven't watched for 2-3 weeks or what have you, I mean, can you give me an update on why these people are fighting and why they hate each other? So the match was a typical AEW tag team match. I can do without any of these people on the show or on my TV screen.
I mean, fair enough, I guess. I will agree with you on one thing, and that's the promo package thing. They should show that at the start, and they've been doing it more in recent months, but they just didn't at all last night.
A heck of a lot of territories, though, have opened professional wrestling shows with professional wrestling out of the gates over the years and had success. I think that one's a bit of a reach there.
I don't think so, to be fair.
Mid-South back in the day, asked Gordon
Well,
Soley
yeah, and what
about
happened
that.
to those territories in the end?
They all got
They all got bought out by the man who did do all that.
Yeah, by your buddy.
Oh, trust me, I'm not a fan of the guy, but the fact of the matter is, they got bought out by the guy who did do all these promo packages and did present it in that way, making it, everything makes sense to a new viewer. Now, I don't agree with you, Ignacio, that I'd be happier if they weren't on my screen. I thought all four of these guys did a great job. Maybe a bit too many kick out. The tag rules weren't followed, right? But I thought it was fun.
I guess. I mean, if you think, look, the fans, I'll give them this. The fans loved it, right? It's a niche audience that loves this type of wrestling or this type of show. And it was supposed to be a stadium show, right? Well, they couldn't fill a stadium, but whatever arena they were at, it was packed. What was the attendance?
I guess that
I believe 13,000, if I'm correct.
13?
Oh,
I need to fact check that.
It's 10,000 plus. That's all I know.
It's pretty darn good.
Okay, well I'll give them that. That's a good turnout for this show. It was good, but I mean, it was just your typical nonsensical flips, flops, and flies and doohickeys, and that's just not my style or not my liking. It's not wrestling. It's not wrestling. They say they're the best wrestling. It's not wrestling. It's like, I don't want to.
I mean, I would disagree because the crowd was invested.
I thought
wrestling is getting the crowd into the show. And
I think there's arguments being made in that regard, Ignacio. I just don't think this match is the one that I would necessarily single out. You know what I mean? If you think about it, like I get where you're coming from on some of the Young Bucks matches. I get where you're coming from on some of these really, really big 10-person tags and things like that, where it's real flip, flop, and fly, and you run yourself into trouble. But this one in particular, I mean, this was a really high quality wrestling match. There were some refereeing issues, but I think, like at the end of the day, the story that the necessary story was told inside of the ring. So I wouldn't discount it that heavily, personally.
And I have got the exact, the fact is there isn't an exact figure. They haven't said, but it's somewhere between 10K, like Coby said, and 13,000. Okay. It's somewhere in that range. We don't know what number there is, and it
yeah.
is a good number. It is true that
Yeah.
is a strong
I
number.
mean,
But how some
the
of the
one
tickets
thing
were
I can
sold is
see
the
here,
question mark.
yeah, the one thing just briefly that I can see here that irks me is the fact that, like I said, this was a vehicle to set up 2 Revolution matches. This was used to set up Kenny Omega versus Takeshita 2 and the Ospreay Fletcher cage match. Yet we have later on in the show them announcing this Revolution series where Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong have to wrestle to become #1 contender for Konosuke Takeshita, and which is a match that'll happen before Revolution, and then the winner faces Kenny Omega. I think that
it's quite
goes, okay,
obvious.
so it's obvious that Takeshita is going to win that, which is the right choice, but it just murkies it because you're presenting it in a weird way, like it's a series, and it like that. That to me murkies this. You had Omega pin Takeshita. That's all that should matter, and now there's a series.
Absolutely, I agree. I think it was a very easy fix. All they had to say was, no matter what's happening, Takeshita's facing Omega. If Takeshita is still the champion by then the title will be on the line too. Otherwise, it will be a non-title match. That way, maybe even you could even think that maybe Takeshita's losing the title because they don't want to give it to Omega or something like that. That would make it a lot more unpredictable. So I think that is a great point, Kobe. But let's now move on to
presenting it as a series kind of made it like, okay, well, this kind of just devalued Omega pinning him.
Right.
Absolutely. Let's now move on to talk about the TBS Championship because we had Mercedes Moné defending against Harley Cameron. And I've been saying it now for a few weeks, but Harley Cameron has come seemingly out of nowhere, and she is somehow one of the most talented people on planet Earth. I don't understand it. How can somebody do as much as she can do? As many talents, she speaks different languages, she can speak with a puppet or whatever. It's absolutely incredible. She can sing, she can rap. Her skills are unbelievable. Absolutely craziness. But she still could not beat Mercedes Moné. Now, I will say, I think the best moment in this match was that moment when we had Harley Cameron on the outside, just standing up with a puppet next to her. That visual, that camera angle, it was absolutely hilarious. I loved it. The Australian crowd were massively behind her, but in the end, Mercedes Moné did quite predictably retain, although I wouldn't have minded it going either way. What were your thoughts, Clark?
So I really thoroughly enjoyed this match, and I've enjoyed Harley's run. I think the right decision was made at this time. I get it. There was a only complaint I had about this one is, like, realistically, she isn't the puppet a weapon? Like, that the referee should have at least been involved in that one.
It's true. Apart from in AEW, they regularly don't recognize weapons as weapons anyway.
What I will say about Harley, and this is what I want to say, is Harley Cameron down the road here reminds me of, if you've ever seen the old school Gatorade commercial, anything you can do, I can do better, with Mia Hamm and Michael Jordan. It's one of the greatest ads ever run. That's who Harley Cameron is, with all these different talents. Ventriloquism, she speaks Chinese. She does this. She can sing. She can rap. She is a Renaissance woman in every single way. This is only the beginning. Yes, she lost to Mercedes Moné last night, but that is not the end for Harley Cameron in any way. She has got the it factor, whatever it is, she has it in spades. I assure you, the talent will bleed through the longer she stays in this business because she's that dang entertaining. She took me out of the referee issues that we previously discussed in my little monologue here. She made it that I didn't care about it until I thought about it after the fact. And that had a lot to do with Harley Cameron. I still believe Mercedes Moné is one of the best women's wrestlers on this planet. And she looked really good last night. But this was Harley Cameron's night in every single way. And sometimes you win in the loss. And that's what Harley did last night.
Absolutely. I do completely agree with you there, Clark. I think the sky is the limit for Harley Cameron. And I'm a big Monet fan as well. And her reign so far has been extremely fun. But we said this on the Thursday show, and I will say it again right now. Harley Cameron, I mean, in like 3 weeks, she had Mercedes Moné's most interesting feud for the TBS Championship. I mean, that is nuts. Basically, single-handedly with a puppet. That is how good she is. It is
It's the
absolutely
dictionary
crazy.
definition of you didn't go over, but you definitely are over.
Yeah, you got over. But now let's move on. Actually, let's quickly take a look at the comments. Bobby Petito is saying Harley Cameron is growing on me, and I hope we see more of her on AEW TV.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Fernando says Mercedes is pound for pound
I think
the
that's fair.
best women's wrestler in the world. Wow, a big take there. But personally, I think that could easily be an argument which is made. But now let's move on to the next topic, shall we? Let's talk about what was basically a no DQ. I think it was a Brisbane brawl or something like
Brisbane
that. I
brawl.
think was
Brisbane brawl.
Yeah. Brisbane.
That's what I would say.
I think it's
It's Brisbane.
Well, Jay White said Brisbane, but
According to who?
I mean, it is
Jay
Brisbane.
White said Brisbane.
Brisbane.
but wrong.
I'll say it how I want to say it.
That's like calling London London or something.
London.
Oh, gosh. I've bought some
like
pronunciations
calling
in my
Cardiff
time. That
Cardiff.
might
Lundy Bridge, whatever. Who cares? I said it weird.
But in a Brisbane or Brisbane brawl, Moxley and Claudio took on Adam Copeland, now just known as Cope, and Jay White. And this was, I thought it was very chaotic, but quite fun. Coby, what were your thoughts on it?
I think it's tough to sit here and say that this was kind of the result we were expecting. And of course, we sit here and go, okay, well, the Revolution match is Cope and Mox, or Adam Copeland and John Moxley. And now I'm sitting here seeing John Moxley choke the life out of Adam Copeland. So that to me is what stands out, and that to me is what makes me think differently. Where are we going from here? Because this was the result. Because right now, where am I going to sit here and go, yeah, well, Copeland has a shot. Well, not really. He lost a street fight, and the Death Riders outnumbered him and Jay White. There's a lot of things to sit here and kind of irksome. This might have been the weakest finish of the night, with it just being a normal, the Bulldog choke and the crowd chanting BS, which was loud and clear. And I think that's the tough part here. Is I'm sitting here saying Adam Copeland took the submission loss. Yes, he didn't tap. He passed out, so he was protected. No, he wasn't. He's your number one contender, and now he took a loss to the champion. That to me is what makes no sense. And if anything teaches us of past booking, that if someone's going to not stand tall, they're most likely going to stand tall. So are we really going to have Copeland win? Like, is that what we're going with right now? Is I know kind of the end game or the potential, not the rumor, but we all are saying signs are pointing to Darby Allin in Texas. Well, this is the first sign that has pointed away from that. And now it looks like maybe Adam Copeland has a shot. But is that just a way to have Christian cash in? Maybe. But I don't know.
I'm going to be honest here, Coby, right? That's why I love the finish to this. Because anybody who watches wrestling, and let's face it, AEW hasn't catered to the casual fan, and I've criticized that, but this finish, the fact they haven't, it makes this make a lot more sense, because everybody knows whoever goes into a championship match with momentum usually loses the championship match. So the fact that Moxley choked out Cope tells me, like you just said, Cope's going to win.
He's also got Spike as the equalizer.
It's 3 weeks.
And one thing I want to add to this really quickly is, did you hear the crowd sing his song?
It was
Don't
nuts.
get me wrong. I yelled it while Chaos sung it at Mania, but it was the entire crowd in unison, and that's hard to quantify.
It really was loud. And yeah, I mean, listen, I said they shouldn't just abandon this Death Rider storyline despite the fact it's had its issues. I've said let's not just abandon it. But hey, maybe they have decided, let's cut our losses here and give it to Cope and just cancel the plans.
Because
Have
even then, I
Christian
think
cash in and Christian Darby.
Because yeah, that's the thing. If Darby winning the title in say Texas is still the move, I think it's almost as effective because he has his past with Christian.
That's true.
Edge debuted simply to help Darby Allin after in the main event of Wrestle Dream.
Yeah, that's true again.
Which was
it makes a
Christian
lot of
versus
sense.
Darby Allin. So like it's not like it's out of the blue or anything. Yes, there's arguably more history between Christian and Darby than Mox and Darby.
And Darby Allin isn't the hero. I've said this so many times. Darby Allin is not a hero. The guy got chucked down some stairs and decided to leave and climb a mountain. That's not being a hero.
Yeah,
that's being a coward. I'm not
Hangman's
the
the hero.
If they acknowledge it on TV, it's dumb. But I don't think
It's
at this point.
I think Orange Cassidy's quite frankly more of a hero. I think he's 10 times the hero than Darby Allin is, right? But now let's move on. Let's talk about Okada versus Buddy Matthews, because if you told me in 2018 that we were going to have Kazuchika Okada versus Buddy Murphy, then my mouth would have been watering. And I don't want to say the hype wasn't the same here, but it wasn't the same here. I was still really excited for it, but the match itself to me felt quite rushed. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. I thought it was enjoyable, but I just thought it was nowhere near the match they could put on, and it kind of did feel like they just wanted to do all the hits and get out of there because they wanted there to be enough time for the main event, and there was a lot of matches to do on a 2-hour show. Ignacio, what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I thought the match was fine, but it was just there. I don't think Okada has lived up to his value or has shown his worth since coming to AEW. He's definitely not the Okada of 5 years ago, in my opinion, right? But I just don't think he's lived up to the expectations, and bad character work, which he's never really had a character. He's trying to be a comedy guy a little bit. They had this awkward stare down, or at the very beginning of the match, or close to the beginning, as the match moved on. They had like an awkward stare down, and then Okada rolls out of the ring, takes his title, acting like he's gonna go back. Buddy Matthews gets on the microphone, calls him a wanker. He gets back in the ring, and then they do this awkward kind of like, they're going to slap each other, and then they both cower or whatever. That whole segment was just silliness. And I just thought that, looking at Buddy Matthews and what kind of talent he is, I don't think he really showed what he can do. We all know what he can do. We've seen him in good matches, but I don't think he performed very well here, or not up to expectations. I thought this match was just average. And you talk about bad finishes. This show was filled with bad finishes. The last finish was bad. This finish was bad. They tried to Okada mule kicked Buddy Matthews and set him up for the ripcord, but it's just like they tried to play it off like the referee didn't see it. The referee was right in front of them. Like he was right there, right in front of him, and the referee saw the mule kick, and he just tried to play it off like he didn't see it. He was right there. Like they tried to make it seem like Okada was distracting him, but Okada had like pushed him away, right? But the referee was still right there in front of him, saw the mule kick, didn't call it, which buried him and buried the whole match.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, or am I being too hard on it?
What?
I think you're right in a lot of ways when it comes to this one. And then I do believe you froze there for a second, but I will say, like, no, I actually am in agreement with you. This one I thought on paper was like the one where you're like Ben presented even earlier, like, wait a minute, it's Buddy Murphy and Okada, like that's a thing that's possible.
Feel like a big deal. That's
one of those where like you got to download them on 2K to play that match in your own fantasy world. Like it's but I would agree that it under-delivered in some regards in relation to the rest of the card, because this is also it's a put it on a poster match by comparison to even some of the other matches, if you talk about like distant history especially, and that's where I think I don't want to call it a letdown, because I believe in both performers. I think they're great, and I think it was cool that Buddy had the
was a
opportunity
letdown.
in
That's
Australia.
what it realistic. It was a fine
But it
match, but
was.
it wasn't as good as
I
it could have
hate.
been.
I hate
I
to
mean-
have to say that, but it was.
The tough part to me is, I mean, yes, we saw it. There's clips, and in his entrance, and Buddy Matthews did, or not Buddy Matthews, yeah, Buddy Matthews got on his turnbuckle, and when he went into the ring, he rolled his ankle.
Oh wow!
So,
know that.
like, I'm not going to say, oh, this is This isn't comparable to CM Punk doing a stage dive. This is a normal part. This is a normal part of his entrance, and he rolls his ankle. I don't know if that meant they cut some things. They were a little less cautious. I don't know what happened, and maybe we'll know a little bit more. But that did happen, and he was limping out.
Well, if that happened, then that makes a lot more sense as to what happened. I didn't even pick up on that.
When he landed in the ring, his ankle went sideways. Like,
oh, I didn't actually catch that.
It could have been broken.
That's interesting.
Like, I don't know if
Great
I don't know
catch.
what role that plays. Well, I mean, there's many.
Could be a big one.
Exactly.
Absolutely
It could be a
could
big
be.
one. It could be a little one. But keep in mind, like, the biggest thing is to me, especially Okada wise, is we ended the year on such a high note, winning the Continental Classic, having a classic with Ospreay, and it feels like they really haven't capitalized on that momentum.
You are absolutely bang on there. But now let's talk about something which, in my opinion, has been one of the best wrestling stories in quite some time now. Mariah May, Toni Storm. Going into this match, I was so excited. I was so pumped up for it. And honestly, I thought it delivered. I thought it was a really enjoyable match. I absolutely loved it. I thought the story was fantastic. A lot of people hated the small package finish, but that's the story they've been telling. Toni Storm has been winning with the small package. That's when she went back into her old character. That's what she was doing. And it made so much sense. So I was fine with that. The only one issue I had was the fact they did a pile driver like 5 seconds before it, and she pretty much no-sold it. I wish it was going in for the pile driver and then she did the small package. I think that would have made so much more sense. But yeah, still, I really enjoyed it. The crowd was so into it. It was a great crowd for it. Toni Storm is once again the AEW Women's Champion, the first 4-time AEW Women's Champion as well. So congratulations to her on that one. A really enjoyable match. Mariah May, I do hope will win it back down the line, but I don't know if that's then hot potato in the title a little bit. But I do think these two ladies have one more match in them, and I'm hoping... Number one Superfly isn't in the chat today, but I'm hoping we see a 3 stages of hell match. That is what I want for this, because I think it's the perfect way to end it. This has been one of the best feuds in AEW Women's Division history. In fact, probably the best, and I want to see a big, big ending to it. But this match, I did quite enjoy. Ignacio, I'll send this to you first. What did you think about this one?
Look, I got to take my statement back. I didn't hate everything on the show. This was the best thing on the show. It was really good. Both individuals have great character work. I think everybody appreciates Toni Storm and how hard she's worked to build this character, manifest it, and it's been tremendous on screen. She's my favorite part of the show. She's my favorite part of the promotion, probably. It was a good match. It was well paced. They didn't do anything too ridiculous, or they didn't do anything to embarrass themselves or bury the referee, really. Or, you know, the commentating throughout the show was terrible. The announcers are terrible. The ring announcer, she's terrible. Little nitpicking things here, but overall, I thought this was the best part of the show. It was good. You're right, Mariah May's a star. I haven't liked her run or her interactions with other feuds with other talent, but with Toni Storm, it's been good. It's been magic, and I didn't like the finish. I didn't like that. She beat her with this was the only wrestling match on the show, and Toni Storm won with a wrestling move, but I just expected more of a dominant finish because pretty much the match was Toni Storm dominating the match wrestling wise, and Mariah May kind of trying to recover and catch up from behind, right? At least that's the story that I saw, and they played it very well. But I just really hope that Toni Storm would win in a dominant fashion. But it's setting up for another match, which I'm not against, because I actually enjoyed this. This was the best thing on the show. I liked it a lot.
Absolutely. And I do think, just even with the story, often in professional wrestling, we see too often, we see too often feuds go on too long. With this match, I actually think it going on longer makes a lot of sense. Coby, what were your thoughts on it?
The biggest thing is I think the crowd was so into and so behind Toni Storm, and I think that's what stands out. I severely prefer the All-In match. I was much more invested in that one. The thing is, and I mean, obviously, this is no fault to Mariah May. Mariah May is tremendous in everything that she has been able to do, but she hasn't been given the ball. I used this analogy last night. It's like it's like not choosing to give a running back the ball. That's what this is. Like she had a reign that had the stench of, okay, well, we're waiting for Toni to be back. And now, oh, Toni's back, so Toni's gonna win. That's what this was. This was the predictable result. It made sense. There's room for a rematch because it was just a roll up, and you have Mariah May reacting in such a negative, like, oh, I'm gonna be mad now because of this result. And it makes sense. It just I was much more invested last year. This felt like, okay, this was the predictable, this was the obvious result, and that is what kind of set me up for this. And like, okay, it made sense. It was a good moment. It was a beautiful moment for Toni to have in front of Australia. But other than that, it was not the better match comparative to the other one.
Wow. Fair enough. For me personally, again, I don't know. I probably do just about agree with you, but to me, they were close. And I was there for the one, of course, in London, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely adored that match, but I thought this one, it came close. And I think from a storyline perspective, again, I think I'm the only person who really liked the finish, but I really liked the finish. I did. I thought it made perfect sense.
I think you aren't the only one. No spoilers here at Wrestling Republic, but I'll give you one. You aren't the only one.
It sets up. That's what's respectable about it.
Yeah,
I think
it continues the story while giving the crowd something to cheer and be happy to go home about. But Clark, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, first off, I want to say this. Sunday Night Spotlight comes out an hour from now, yet I recorded it at 6 a.m. So I do discuss this pretty deeply there, considering it's what I spotlight. No spoilers here at Wrestling Republic. Dang it, I did it again. Spoiler alert. Check that one out. Clark. Truth be told, these two women, what they've done, there's a lot of, and I'm not trying to open a can of worms, there's a lot of criticism when it comes to the AEW women's division and storytelling in AEW. And these two women are storytellers. So I'm not going to ever sit here and nitpick, because they are the two best at it we've seen yet in AEW so far. This is the best rivalry. Like Ben said earlier, I think it's the best story that's been told in the AEW women's division, period. Timeless Toni Storm, it's been home and home. We get England and Australia. We talked about that even earlier, the rivalry, all of it, the roll-up finish. She's timeless. The pump fake on the old school music, every little bit. And it's very rare in wrestling. And I understand some of this is home field advantage, home court advantage, whatever you'd like to call it. But that you have a 100% babyface against a 100% heel in an arena in a main event. And that's exactly what we got last night. And I dug every single second of it. I truly enjoyed the match. I've truly enjoyed the rivalry. I'm so impressed by both performers. Not just Toni Storm, but Mariah May deserves her flowers as well in this moment. These are two of the best things going in all of professional wrestling. And it tickled me that Ignacio said, you know what? I did enjoy this one because truthfully, how could you not? It was a delight in every single way. Sincerely, thank you. Like, this rivalry has been awesome and it doesn't need to be paid off immediately. We don't need to see the rubber match, the end of this. This is something that can carry on for years. This is lightning in a bottle for a company that needs it. And that's important. And we need to note when things like this happen. We don't need to always be negative. Sometimes we got to be positive. And I'm not trying to be critical of people that are critical of AEW because I am critical of AEW myself. But this one in particular is lightning in a bottle. When it comes to the top of the card in the AEW women's division, that's what we have with Mariah May and Toni Storm. And I appreciate it every single time they go out there and perform. And last night was a masterclass.
No doubt about it. I could not have said it better myself, Clark. And I'm looking forward to you talking about it more on Sunday Night Spotlight in an hour and 19 minutes time. We do have a few comments before we wrap up. Fernando says he agrees that Darby is not staying and he should not be the one to take the championship from Moxley. I mean, I just don't think he should be treated as the savior, really, because again, he's left them, he's abandoned everything to climb a mountain. But Sean Ellis, they've acknowledged it on air now, though, I believe.
Have they already?
Maybe somebody fact check me on that one.
I don't think they have.
A tweet saying they have, so I could be wrong.
If they have, it's idiotic. If they have, it's so dumb.
They've acknowledged that.
I might have done my own thing I say not to do and just believe the tweet, but
they have this year.
No.
I don't know if they've done it this year yet.
No.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Sean Ellis, I mean, he hates AEW. My aim in life is to get Sean Ellis to like one AEW show.
I want to film a vlog where I take Sean to an AEW show. That would be so fun.
Can we get Sean Ellis to like AEW?
Hot dogs and beers and have a good time.
An AEW hater into an AEW fan. But Rusev and Aleister Black, of course, have been removed from the AEW website. Their futures are completely unknown, and I have no idea. Fernando says last women's standing match between Toni Storm and Mariah May would be
yes.
The one I would almost say, I mean, if it makes sense to do it in All In Texas, do the first female Texas death match in AEW history.
I'd prefer that over a last person. I'm personally not a fan of last person standing matches and multi-man matches.
Well, it's the same step, isn't it?
Is it?
It's the same step. They call it a Texas death match in AEW.
No. It's a different step. Texas death match you can win also by submission.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
It is slightly different.
True. Different enough.
Yeah, you can win by submission in a Texas death match.
Well, I don't. Has anyone actually done that in AEW?
The irony is that
I don't think it
happened, but it is in the rules.
The one that I remember is the buckshot lariat off the ref through the tables. That's the most memorable Texas deathmatch finish I know from AEW.
What a dumb stipulation. I'm joking, but I don't like the.
But it makes sense. Texas.
Well, no, but it goes back to the funks.
It makes
by the way,
sense.
The Texas deathmatch situation stipulation to be clear is not an AEW original that goes back.
No, it's not. I know that it goes back.
Yeah.
It goes back to 1975. I can tell you because I've just googled the stipulation. But that does bring us to the end of the show, guys. Thank you to everybody who watched and commented throughout.
Sean Ellis is in the challenge.
There we are. He's in. He wants to be taken to the AEW side. LLE33WX. The WX AX, that's a tongue twister, is saying Grand Slam was a great show last night. It absolutely was. But that does bring us to the end of the show now, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back the same time, same place tomorrow to answer your questions for Mailbag Monday. Whew. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Coby. Thank you, Clark. We will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.